Love is unpredictable. It rarely knocks when expected. It tiptoes into our lives, sometimes through words, sometimes through gestures, and sometimes through something as simple as a video game. This is the story of Sara and Daniel, two people who never imagined their lives would intertwine in the way they did. They weren't childhood sweethearts. They didn't meet through a dating app. No, their story began in a place far more magical and unexpected inside the digital world of Skyrim. It was November 2011. The air outside was crisp with the early whisper of winter, and the gaming community was alive with excitement. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, the highly anticipated RPG from Bethesda, was about to launch. For fans of the series, this wasn't just another game. It was an open invitation to a world of dragons, destinies, and ancient prophecies. For many, it marked the beginning of hundreds of hours of quests, discovery, and adventure. But for Sara, it was something much more personal. Sara, a 24-year-old graphic designer living in the heart of Portland, had always been drawn to fantasy. Raised on stories of elves, dragons, and brave knights, she grew up with books by Tolkien, Le Guin, and Lewis on her nightstand. While her peers idolized pop stars, she dreamed of wielding enchanted swords and learning arcane spells. Her love for fantasy naturally flowed into her profession. She brought her imaginative worlds to life in everything from marketing materials to independent comics. It was during a quiet coffee break at her advertising firm that she mentioned Skyrim to a coworker. As she sipped her caramel macchiato, eyes bright with excitement, she talked about the launch weekend. "I'm seriously counting the hours until Skyrim releases this weekend," she said, almost bouncing. "I've already cleared my schedule. It's gonna be a deep dive. Just me, my console, and some sweet rolls." Standing beside her was Daniel, a 28-year-old software engineer with a quiet demeanor and a thoughtful gaze. Unlike Sara, Daniel had never been a serious gamer. He enjoyed logic puzzles, classic literature, and had a fondness for writing poetry in the margins of his notebooks. He knew of video games. Of course, he had dabbled during his college years, but it wasn't something he had immersed himself in. "Skyrim?" he asked, intrigued. "That's the Elder Scrolls game, right? The one with dragons and shouts?" Daniel smiled, half amused, half curious. He had heard the title before, maybe from a forum or during casual conversations, but what struck him most in that moment was not the game itself, but the way Sara lit up when she spoke. Her passion was infectious, her excitement pure, and in a world often weighed down by routine, that spark drew him in. That night, Daniel did something unexpected. After dinner, instead of reading his usual chapter of Dostoevsky or tweaking lines of code for his side project, he opened his laptop and began researching Skyrim. He watched trailers filled with sweeping landscapes, dragons soaring above snow-covered mountains, and heroes shouting down enemies with the force of their voice. He skimmed through forums, trying to understand the lore, the mechanics, the community. He didn't grasp every detail. But he didn't need to. What he saw was a world that made someone he admired come alive. The next day, during his lunch break, Daniel walked into a local game store. The shelves were bustling with energy. Posters of Skyrim lined the walls, customers eagerly clutching pre-orders. Daniel didn't hesitate. He purchased a copy of the game not for himself, but for Sara. Early Saturday morning, Sara was lounging at home in her pajamas, waiting for the clock to strike midnight so she could begin her adventure. The doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, she found Daniel standing awkwardly, a brown paper bag in his hands. "I brought something for your big day," he said with a shy smile. "You'll need fuel for your adventure." Inside the bag was a brand new copy of Skyrim, a bottle of her favorite cold brew, and 2 snack bags, one spicy, one sweet. On top, a small handwritten card. "For your next great adventure, may your shouts always be heard." Sara was stunned. They weren't close friends, barely even office buddies. But this gesture, simple, thoughtful, and entirely unexpected, moved her deeply. "Daniel, this is incredibly sweet. You didn't have to do this," she said, touched. "I wanted to," he replied. "You seemed genuinely excited, and I figured, why not be a small part of that?" In that moment, something shifted. A wall came down. A spark ignited not yet of romance, but of genuine connection and appreciation. What followed was a beautiful evolution. Sara invited Daniel over the following weekend to watch her play. What began as an hour-long session turned into an entire day of exploration. She explained the mechanics, the lore, the factions, and the thrill of choosing your own destiny. He listened, asked questions, and slowly began to fall not just for the game but for the girl guiding him through it. They began spending more time together. What started as conversations about dragons and Daedric artifacts soon morphed into discussions about life, childhood dreams, and the books they loved. Daniel introduced Sara to his favorite authors Bradbury, Asimov, and Gaiman. She introduced him to her sketchbook, filled with fantastical creatures and epic scenes. One evening, during a co-op session of another RPG, they ordered pizza shaped like a dragon's head. Sara's idea, of course. As they laughed over their ridiculous creation, Daniel looked at her, truly looked, and realized he didn't want this to be just friendship anymore. Their first official date didn't involve candlelight and roses. It was a couch, a blanket, a Skyrim-themed pizza, and hours of gameplay. But to them, it was perfect. Spring came, and with it, new beginnings. They were no longer just friends. Their connection deepened with time. They began sharing weekends, then weekdays, then lives. Daniel moved into Sara's apartment the following winter. The space quickly transformed. Game posters met first edition novels, a framed map of Tamriel hung next to vintage typewriters. It was a home built on mutual respect, laughter, and a shared sense of wonder. In 2017, 6 years after that first game launch, they stood under a golden sky surrounded by family, friends, and a few nerdy nods to their beginnings. Sara wore a delicate necklace styled after the amulet of Mara, the in-game symbol of commitment and love. Daniel's cufflinks bore the Skyrim emblem, subtle but significant. As they exchanged vows, they whispered together, "I choose you through every quest, every battle, every restart." Many guests didn't catch the reference, but to them, it was everything. Today, Sara and Daniel still game together. They revisit Skyrim not out of habit, but as a ritual, a way to remember where it all began. Their evenings are still filled with dragons, quests, and the occasional glitch, but also with shared laughter and the comfort of knowing they found each other in the most unexpected way. Love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes, it sneaks in through the smallest doors, through a shared coffee break, a thoughtful gift, or a simple conversation. For Sara and Daniel, love came not through fate or planning, but through a video game. A digital realm sparked a real-world romance. And in a world full of chaos, they found peace in each other, in shared adventures, and in the quiet certainty that the most epic quests aren't always the ones on screen. Sometimes, they're the ones we live. Love can come from the unlikeliest places.